Since 1000 BC, humans have been farming fish, raising them in man-made ponds, tanks, and cages immersed in natural bodies of water. Aquaculture has enabled people in all walks of life to afford quality seafood, no matter where they live or what socioeconomic class they fall into. What used to be only fresh fish available near the shore of the ocean, lake, or river it was sourced from is now a plethora of readily available choices of every kind of sea creature imaginable, with the opportunity to purchase fresh, frozen, canned, smoked, dried, or pickled varieties. Gone are the days of pricing based on the bad luck of fishing boats facing storms or food chain issues. In addition to fish farming making fish more readily available to consumers, aquaculture in practice also greatly reduces the risk of overfishing, keeping the natural balance of fish populations going in the ocean, as well as keeping the food chain and circle of life in balance. The less we mess with the ocean, the more it will naturally take care of itself. Experts have predicted that with the current state of our fishing practices, up to 90% of consumable fish in the ocean will be gone by the year 2050. And by then, we may have dug too big of a hole to climb out of. One of the solutions to help our fish populations recover from overfishing of humans comes in the form of marine reserves, or areas of the ocean that are known breeding grounds for certain species of fish being off limits for fishing. Putting this into practice has proven that fish populations can bounce back quickly when given the time and the space to do so organically. Fish farming ensures that we are able to support the demand for fish to eat while still being able to give the ocean time and space to recuperate after decades of overfishing. About 7% of our oceans are currently marine reserve space. It's estimated that about 30% of the world's ocean space will need to be protected as marine reserves before the damage will truly be reversed. Speaking of not messing with the ocean, pollution is another important reason to support aquaculture. It's particularly humorous to me that we focus so heavily on plastic straws and plastic bags when fishing gear is a substantially larger percentage of the plastic pollution in our oceans. After some digging, I discovered that plastic straws are really just a symbol. Straws are a luxury item that most people can do without. By pushing for straw use to reduce drastically, the population can prove to itself that the next step can be taken to reduce plastic waste, and then the next, and so on, until the biggest issues can be tackled and the prediction that plastic in the ocean will outnumber fish in the ocean by the year 2050 can be proven wrong. My original thought was that a much larger impact on plastic pollution in the ocean would revolve more around how we source our fish and less on whether or not I drink through a plastic straw on a daily basis. But the straw thing has turned out to almost just be a psychological experiment with a side of progress. I get it, especially because going from wild-caught fish to farmed fish seems to be a much more foreign concept to most Americans compared to the idea of ditching straws because they get stuck up the nose of adorable sea turtles. A rumor that I've heard floating around is that farmed seafood has no nutritional value and that the only way to get the full benefit of consuming seafood is to consume wild-caught seafood. Coming from a farming background, I wondered what the thinking was behind that. The Google results that I perused supporting the idea that farmed seafood was bad for people to eat were largely commercial websites or organizations that talked a lot about the captivity of the animals and quality of life. The same organizations that rant about cattle farmers being the devil and chickens being kept in hamster cages. The best information that I found didn't commit to one side of the argument or the other. The answer to does farmed seafood lack nutrients that wild caught seafood has is it depends. There are a few different factors involved. One of the factors is what the fish eats over its lifetime. Just like my experience with cattle and sheep farming, fish farmers have the freedom to choose what their livestock eats. And they are able to choose high quality food with vitamins and minerals that will support healthy growth and good nutrition for the consumer of that food. In the wild, fish eat what they can find. And the bigger the fish, the more smaller fish it will eat, increasing the levels of mercury, pesticides, and metals in that fish's meat, as opposed to smaller fish who eat less over their lifetime. Arguably, that sounds to me like farmed fish could strategically be loaded with more good nutrients than wild-caught fish, which we have no control over. Water quality was also brought up as an issue. The answer in that area largely depends on how the fish are kept. If they are kept in cages in the ocean, the water conditions for wild and farmed fish will be exactly the same. If they are being kept in tanks on land, the water quality can be closely monitored and controlled, and that could actually make the water conditions better than the ocean. The pH levels in the ocean have been steadily rising over the years, which is also our fault, and that is adversely affecting a lot of sea life, particularly animals who depend on proper pH levels to enable them to create shells. At the end of the day, the verdict is in. Farmed seafood and wild-caught seafood both have their pros and cons, and experts agree that it doesn't matter which type you eat. It's all good for you, and the benefit of eating 2 to 3 servings of fish per week far outweigh the risks. So enjoy, and know that if you're consuming responsibly farmed seafood, you're making a difference for all of the creatures in the sea, as well as fueling your body in one of the healthiest ways.